Say, what do you get if you take Ving Rhames, Danny Trejo, John Cusack, Steve Buscemi, Dave Chappelle, John Malkovich, Nicolas Cage, a huge amount of fairly stupid yet awesome action, and let Jerry Bruckheimer do his thing with it? A pretty awesome action flick is what? Yeah, I fucking love this film. Oh, don't get me wrong, it's not like it's perfect or anything, but you can't really go wrong with that cast and Jerry Bruckheimer's usually excellent filmmaking. Now, of course, just having those people involved is no guarantee that the film itself will turn out good or even decent, but in my opinion, it definitely doesn't hurt its chances either. In any case, I for one think this is a pretty entertaining piece of action, but as mentioned, it's not exactly perfect. There are several problems with everything from acting to overall plot elements, and it's far from the most intelligent film around, but like I said, I still love it. All that considered, is this film actually any good, or am I just an idiot who's been blinded by all the cool explosions and flashy effects it has?
Can it be both?
Well, I guess we're about to find out, because I am going to go over one of my favorite action films of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I think John Malkovich puts it best.
Welcome to Con Air.
So the film opens with some stock war footage with a narration about the US Army Rangers.
Army Rangers have a proud history. Since the 1700s, Rangers have led the way in every major confrontation in which the United States has been involved. Never leaving behind a fallen comrade, no matter what the odds or the enemy. And remember, Rangers lead the way.
This opening is basically just a way to introduce us to a main character, Cameron Poe, played by Nicolas Cage. He's an Army Ranger who's apparently just completed his training or some mission or something, and he's returning home to his pregnant wife who's working as a waitress in some bar. While they're reuniting, some drunken hick with the hots for Poe's wife decides to try his luck at luring her away from him using his massive amounts of charm.
Tell you what, soldier dick. Why don't you go buy me and my buddies around?
Now, you might think that behavior was actually pretty rude and obnoxious, but this is Alabama. By their standards, that was a fucking fountain of compliments. While Poe momentarily seems ready to knock this guy out, his wife talks him out of it and the hick leaves them alone. However, when Poe and his wife are leaving later on, they're confronted by the hick again, and this time, he's brought his boys. They start attacking Poe, who obviously manages to fight them off, but when one of the hicks pulls out a knife, Poe accidentally kills him. Yeah, who would have thought that picking a fight with a highly trained Army Ranger could possibly backfire? In any case, one of the hicks is dead and Poe gets sent to jail for murder. While the opening credits roll, we see Poe working out, reading various books, and corresponding with his family as 8 years roll by. Apparently, he has now been granted parole and is about to be released. His cellmate, called Babyo, is apparently being transferred as well, so they're both placed on a bus bound for a very special plane that will take them to their destinations. Meanwhile, we see the US Marshal Service go over the details of their upcoming mission.
Today's flight is a special one. We're populating Alabama's Felton Penitentiary, the newest Supermax facility in the system. This place was designed to warehouse the worst of the worst. Now, most of these guys are lifers, some on death row, pure predators, each and every one of them.
That's why we decided to put them all on the same flight at the same time. I mean, it's not like they're gonna start a riot, take over the plane, and cause a shitload of trouble or anything. Yeah, this whole setup is a bit odd, to say the least. Maybe this is something the US Marshal Service does on a regular basis, maybe not, I have no idea, but I still doubt that they would do it quite this way. Okay, so you may think that as long as the criminals are securely confined and properly searched, this isn't really so stupid, but trust me, this is one of the least secure flights I have ever seen. We'll come back to that later, but for now we're introduced to Vince Larkin, played by John Cusack, a marshal overseeing the flight, and Duncan Malloy, played by Cole Meany, a DEA agent who's sending aboard one of his own men in disguise to try and coax some information out of one of the inmates before he's incarcerated. They're going over the details of the mission as well as the information they have on all the inmates on the flight, which is basically just an excuse to have what I like to call a bad guy road call.
That's William Bedford, a.k.a. Billy Bedlam.
The mass murderer?
The same. He caught his wife in bed with another man, left her alone, drove 4 towns over to his wife's family's house. Killed her parents, her brothers, her sisters, even her dog.
Scan him.
And who is that good-looking brother on screen?
Nathan Jones, a.k.a. Diamond Dog, former general of the Black Guerrillas. He blew up a meeting of the National Rifle Association saying, and I quote, they represented the basest negativity of the white race. This one's done it all. Kidnapping, robbery, murder, extortion. His name is Cyrus Grissom, a.k.a. Cyrus the Virus. 39 years old, 25 of them spent in our institutions. But he's bettered himself inside, earned 2 degrees, including his Juris Doctor. He also killed 11 fellow inmates, incited 3 riots, and escaped twice. Likes to brag that he killed more men than cancer.
Okay, open wide. Lift your tongue.
And apparently he's a huge Kiss fan. We're also introduced to the actually funny and genuinely awesome comic relief of the film, played by none other than Dave fucking Chappelle.
Easy, man. Open up. Oh, man, it smells like someone shit in your mouth.
Told me he loved me.
And you know what? That is probably one of the worst lines he has in this film. Oh yes! He's that fucking great! And before you go thinking that part of how great he is here is due to the script or directing or something, Dave Chappelle apparently improvised most of his lines for this film, so it's all him. Anyway, Larkin and Malloy also thoroughly cover the information they have on Poe.
Hey, Larkin, who's that guy?
That is Cameron Poe, a parolee hitching a ride home. He's a nobody.
Why exactly we decided to put him on this flight with nothing but the worst criminals our country's ever seen is beyond me, but I guess we needed some way of getting a hero character in there. Before the plane takes off, we're also introduced to Danny Trejo's character, a serial rapist called Johnny 23 because of his 23 different counts of rape.
Call me Johnny 600 if they knew the truth.
You know, I realize that this is supposed to be a fairly despicable and all-around unlikable character, but still, it's pretty bad when I find myself having the same thoughts about him as an insane serial killer.
Anyway, I despise rapists. For me, you're somewhere between a cockroach and that white stuff that accumulates at the corner of your mouth when you're really thirsty.
With the plane starting to take off, we see that some of the inmates apparently managed to smuggle aboard a few things to help them set an escape plan into motion. Cyrus and Diamond Dog apparently got a couple of needles through the various security checks by placing them under the skin in their hands, and Dave Chappelle snuck in a bag containing a vial of some flammable liquid and a match by hiding it in his stomach. Yeah, nothing but top-notch security for this operation. Okay, so maybe I'd be willing to buy that someone could manage to smuggle these kinds of items onto a high-security flight like this if they were good and or lucky enough, but come on, this is a bit of a tough sell. Also, as if it wasn't bad enough that they somehow managed to smuggle aboard these things, these high-security inmates can also break free of their restraints by simply picking the locks on their handcuffs with a fucking needle? Okay, so they also put them inside their own cages that also have locks on them, but apparently, all you have to do to get those open is to get some drug mule to set fire to one of the other inmates so that it gets dragged over to the controls by a guard wearing the keys so loosely that they can just be snatched off her and used to open the very accessible control panel for the doors. Again, just excellent fucking security here, right? Oh, and Poe, you know how you noticed Dave Chappelle, or Pinball as it's called here, coughing up this bag and opening it up way before he actually uses it? Yeah, that's what we smart people like to call a red fucking flag. Seriously, why doesn't Poe just grab a hold of the guards, tell them about what he saw, and stop this whole mess from happening in the first place? Okay, so you might argue that he doesn't want to be a snitch or whatever, but he just wants to get home to his wife and kid. You really think he'd be too bothered about pissing off some death row inmate who he's most likely never going to interact with ever again? Besides, it's not like he's too fussed about fucking up their plans later on, and yes, the guards should have noticed this on their own, or at the very least handled the situation a bit differently, i.e. more competently when it flared up, but still, what the fuck, Poe? So, as said, the inmates break loose and take over the plane. After getting his restraints taken off, Poe also gets his first opportunity to confront one of the other inmates, Johnny 23, when he tries to rape Bishop, the female guard.
I can't allow that.
You know what I am?
Ugly all day.
You have the right to remain.
Before any sort of real fight can break out though, Cyrus steps in and puts an end to it, and again I find myself agreeing with his suggested punishment for when and if Trejo does attempt to rape anyone.
Do you fly, Johnny?
No. You keep that in mind when you look at her, because if your dick jumps out of your pants, you jump out of this plane.
Should I be at all worried that I find the most relatable character so far to be a mass-murdering psychopath? Cyrus and the rest of the gang aren't quite in the clear yet though, as they have to land at another airport in Carson City as scheduled in order to pick up a few more people, including a man named Francisco Cindino, who is apparently the man responsible for this whole operation. You see, Cindino is the man the DEA agent was sent in to investigate, and he apparently doesn't want to get sent to jail, so he somehow put together this whole thing in exchange for a plane ride to a non-extradition country for Cyrus and his fellow inmates. Before the gang can really get this plan underway though, the DEA agent suddenly springs up and takes Pinball hostage using a gun he had strapped to his leg, and for the third fucking time I find myself agreeing with Cyrus when he brings up a valid point about this agent's choice of hostage.
You know, the next time you choose a human shield, you're better off not picking a 2-bit Negro crackhead.
Hey!
Okay, are we sure this guy's actually insane, or is he just intelligent? I mean, I know Americans can have a tough time telling the difference, but this is getting a bit disturbing. Poe attempts to calm this whole situation down by getting the DEA guy to back off, but unfortunately he ends up getting shot anyway. After Cyrus congratulates Poe on his good work, Baby-O offers him some comforting words.
Nice going, son. Not only did you not save this dude's life, you done made best friends with Cyrus the damn virus.
Wow, what a great friend. I mean, way to pile on, guy. It's not like Poe actually had all that much to do with that guy being killed, but he probably still feels pretty bad about it. And yet you, his friend and cellmate for the past 8 years, feel the need to pile on and make him feel even worse? Way to step up and be a buddy, dickhead. Actually, let me go off on a bit of a tangent for a moment here. Baby-O is pretty much one of the most useless and annoying characters ever. I'm not kidding, there's not really any good reason for him to be in this film, apart from giving Poe a little bit more of a reason not to get off the plane when he gets the chance. Okay, so he is diabetic, and since he doesn't get his insulin shot due to some relatively convoluted reasons, his health gets progressively worse and worse as the film goes on, which I guess would cause anyone to be a bit grumpy and or whiny, but still, he just comes off as such an annoying twat. Honestly, all this guy does is complain, bitch, and whine. More of that, please! Thankfully, Baby-O doesn't exactly have a big part in the film, so let's get back to it, shall we? It turns out that 6 people are scheduled to leave the plane at their next stop, but unfortunately, 3 of them were killed when Cyrus and the others broke free.
I don't know how to tell you this, Cyrus, but we are 3 white guys short. Or as they say in Ebonics, we be fucked.
After again reinforcing my belief that he may actually just be a smart guy by making this clever move.
You don't mean that dirty nigga crackhead shit, did you?
You mean that gun? Hell yes, I meant it.
Cyrus asks for 3 volunteers to get off the plane at Carson City. Baby-O convinces Poe that they should volunteer so that he can get his insulin, but as they only need white guys, Baby-O has to stay on the plane. Poe says he'll scream to high heaven once he's off, making sure the plane never leaves, but unfortunately, Cyrus is smart enough to realize that someone might do this, so he has the volunteers gagged and bagged. Poe therefore talks his way back on the plane, where he discovers that the DEA agent was wearing a recording device. He plants the device on one of the guards they use as a substitute for the dead inmates and sends him on his way. So after they land, a few more people join the crew, including a new pilot called Swamp Thing and the benefactor of this whole ordeal, Francisco Cindino. They also get a last-minute addition to the group, introduced to us in one of the most over-the-top and ridiculous reveals I have ever seen.
What the fuck is that?
That's Garland Greene, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't think even Hannibal Lecter would get this sort of treatment. And he fucking ate people! Now, don't get me wrong, this guy isn't exactly pleasant, but no one ever mentions anything about him being excessively violent or that he eats or even bites people or anything, so I really don't get these restraints. I am willing to give the authorities the benefit of the doubt though, so tell me, who exactly is this Garland Greene?
Marietta Mangler. That skinny little man butchered 30-something people up and down the eastern seaboard. They say the way he killed those people makes the Manson family look like the Partridge family.
Okay, so he's pretty fucking bad, but not really all that much worse than some of the other people on this flight, making those restraints completely and utterly pointless. Maybe he's just a bit of an attention-seeking show-off. While all this is going on, Swamp Thing has taken out the plane's transponder, handed it to Pinball, and sent him to stash it somewhere. He finds a small airplane in a hangar where he decides to place the transponder, but while doing so, he's noticed by some guard or something.
What are you doing here?
Hello. How you doing, baby? I'm just trying to get out the storm, you know, grab my lunch.
Well, this is a restricted area.
Look, don't worry, baby. It's all right. I'm a cop.
You work for a prison or something?
Yeah, Department of Corrections.
Ugh, Dave, what the hell? That was beneath you, and you fucking know it. You better go back to being funny right now, and don't you ever do something like that again. Anyway, right before the plane is about to take off, the prison guards handling the newly arrived inmates comes across the tape recorder Poe placed on one of them. They contact the marshal services and try to stall the plane, but they're too late and the convicts manages to get away. Unfortunately, in the rush to get airborne, Pinball doesn't make it back in time.
No? That's too bad. I like pinball.
I don't know why, but I just love how John Malkovich says that line.
I like pinball.
He just sounds so innocent, doesn't he?
I like pinball.
I like wrestling.
So anyway, after learning about what has happened, Malloy, the DEA guy, is understandably a bit upset and begins shooting his mouth off.
What kind of a Keystone Cops operation you guys running here, huh? And you little shit, you got my agent killed.
Hey! He brought a gun on the plane.
If I knew the way you guys run things, I would have gone and bring a fucking Uzi on board.
No one carries on these flights. No one. He brought a gun on board and he got himself killed. And in doing so, he compromised the safety of my men.
Your men are incompetent. They let themselves get taken over by a bunch of thugs and chains and cages.
I'm not gonna stand around and listen to this shit.
Guys.
Huh. You know, this film has a very strange way of getting me to side with the wrong guys. First, I agree with Cyrus on almost everything, and now I find myself agreeing with this asshole. No, really, I actually kind of agree with Malloy here. Okay, so I'm not sure if bringing even more guns aboard the plane would have solved everything, but I definitely agree that Larkin's men are fucking incompetent. Hell, anyone involved in this entire operation is incompetent. They just shouldn't have given these guys any opportunity to ride at all, let alone take over the fucking plane. Everything from the security checks to the inmates' restraints to the guards' way of dealing with the situation was just wrong, wrong, wrong. In any case, Malloy manages to convince the chief of the marshals, or whatever the hell he is, to send up a squadron of attack choppers in order to bring the plane down. Larkin objects as he doesn't want any more of their own men to get killed, but he is overruled as the others don't see any other way of solving the situation. Unfortunately, they head in the wrong direction as they are chasing the transponder Pinball hit in what turns out to be a scenic tour plane, something they don't discover until they nearly crash into it. The convicts, on the other hand, are apparently headed towards an airfield in the middle of nowhere to rendezvous with their benefactors and to get their plane right out of the country. They also find out Pinball's ultimate fate when they check the landing gear after realizing that it hasn't closed all the way. Poe is told to cut him loose, and while Diamond Dog is preoccupied going through their personal possessions, he uses the opportunity to write a note to Vince Larkin on Pinball's shirt. After he crashes into an elderly couple's car, Larkin is informed about Pinball's body and the note on it, causing him to realize where the plane is actually heading. Poe then runs into a bit of trouble after one of the other convicts, Billy Bedlam, starts to suspect that he isn't quite who he says he is. Billy confirms this suspicion after going through Poe's belongings and finding his parole papers. This leads us to the greatest, most badass, and just downright awesome line of any action film ever.
Put the bunny back in the box.
Now that's what I call an action catchphrase. Fuck lines like, I'll be back and yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. This is the real deal.
Put the bunny back in the box.
So, after that epic moment, Poe and Billy have a fight, resulting in Billy being killed.
Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
After a bit of a crash landing, the convicts arrive at the airfield where they're supposed to switch planes, but the new plane apparently hasn't arrived yet. Larkin has also managed to find his way there, and while attempting to find some needles for Baby O's insulin, Poe runs into him. Actually, he first runs into some random thugs apparently working for Sindino, who were hiding along with the small plane they plan to sneak away in. They're about to shoot Poe, but then he brings up a very good point.
You fire that weapon, 20 pissed off prisoners are gonna hear it. Comprende, ese? Hooray for the sounds of fucking silence.
Okay, how many awesome lines is this film going to have? I mean, first we had this.
You know what I am.
Ugly all day.
Then we got this.
Put the bunny back in the box.
And now we get this.
Hooray for the sounds of fucking silence.
If we get any more lines like this, my testicles might just explode from an overdose of testosterone. Anyway, Poe manages to knock all the thugs out after Larkin distracts them, and they have themselves a little conversation. Larkin informs Poe that the troops are on their way, and he also learns about Poe's reason for staying on the plane. Before he leaves, Poe asks him to explain the situation to his wife and kid if things should go bad.
He'll do that for me, won't you, Larkin?
Sure I will. What are you gonna do for me?
What do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna save the fucking day.
Told you. So, as Larkin said, the troops are indeed closing in, as Cyrus and the others rush to get airborne. Seeing an opportunity, Sandino makes a break for it and tries to leave in the hidden plane, but Larkin manages to stop him by breaking off the tail section of the plane. Being understandably ticked off by Sandino's betrayal, Cyrus sets fire to the fuel leaking from the plane and a nearby gas tank, killing Sandino in a fiery explosion. The convicts then find the weapons hidden in the jailbird's belly, and Cyrus lays out his plans for dealing with the incoming troops.
This is the boneyard. This is the hangar. This is our plane.
What's that?
That's a rock.
Okay.
It was a big rock.
Basically, the plan is to take out the lead and last cars, trapping the troops in a cage of death. When the troops arrive, all hell breaks loose. There's guns going off, people dying on both sides, and lots of fire and explosions. Larkin eventually manages to shield some of the troops behind a truck, leading them away from danger, and Poe gets a hold of the needle he was looking for and gets back to the plane using a police car. On the plane, he finds Johnny 23 about to rape God Bishop, so he swiftly puts a stop to that.
Don't treat women like that!
Cyrus and the other remaining convicts eventually retreat back to the plane, and although Poe attempts to slow them down by tying up the plane, they still manage to get airborne without too much trouble. We then see what I consider to be the worst part of the entire fucking film. Now, you might be wondering what the hell was so bad about that? Hell, you might even be wondering what the hell it was about to begin with. Well, let me explain. You see, something I didn't mention about this whole airfield malarkey was that Cyrus previously released Garland Greene from his restraints, and when they landed, he wanders off into this trailer park where he comes across a little girl playing with her dolls. This scene is actually kinda creepy, even when the girl gets Garland to sing with her.
He's got the whole world in his hands, he's got the whole wide world. In his hands, he's got the whole world. In his hands, he's got the whole world in his hands.
Now, at this point, most of us are probably thinking the same thing. This girl is dead as shit. I mean, this guy is apparently one of the worst mass murderers in the history of the United States, and he slaughtered people in the most horrific ways imaginable, so yeah, it's a fairly reasonable assumption that this girl is a goner. This belief is only strengthened when we see Garland return to the plane holding one of her dolls, but as you should have noticed, she is just peachy, waving goodbye to the plane when it takes off. So, if Garland didn't kill her or harm her in any way, let me just ask you one simple little question. What the fuck was the point of that fucking scene? No, really, if you didn't intend to show us just how sick Garland is by having him kill an innocent little girl, then why have this scene at all? Don't get me wrong, I'm not exactly a fan of seeing any kid get brutally slaughtered, but then again, you wouldn't have to show us the actual kill. Just do exactly what you did, but leave out the scene of the little girl waving goodbye. This is just such a massive puss-out moment, probably done to please some censoring or ratings board or something, which is almost never a good thing. Okay, so this scene may be a bit out of place and borderline tasteless no matter what, but still, if you're not going to go all the way with it, then don't do it at all. Anyway, back on the plane, Diamond Dog comes across Poe's release papers and shows them to Cyrus. In an attempt to flush out the traitor on board, which he most likely already knows is Poe, he takes Bishop, points a gun to her head, and tells the traitor to step forward by the count of 3. Before Poe has a chance to reveal himself, Baby-O stands up and claims to be the traitor. Poe tries to convince Cyrus that he's just loopy from the incident, but he's too late.
It's pretty clever, huh, bitch?
Jesus! No, that's clever!
Yes! 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 That's what I'm talking about! Oh, thank you, Cyrus! Thank you! Thank you! Thank you! That's right, Cyrus shoots Baby-O and then starts reading a letter Poe received from his daughter.
My daddy is coming home on July 14th.
My birthday is July 14th. I'm gonna see my daddy for the first time ever on July 14th. Make a move and the bunny gets it.
That line was so good it made my testicles come back! In any case, Larkin, Malloy and some military guys arrive in attack helicopters and begin to shoot at the plane. While Cyrus is distracted firing back at them, Poe rushes to the cockpit taking down anyone standing in his way and takes over control of the plane. Malloy is just about to shoot down the plane with a missile, but decides not to after Poe contacts them. However, it turns out that this might have been a bad move, as the plane is definitely going down, but not in a way you'd want.
Well, listen here, Big Daddy. We got one engine shot to shit, 0 fuel, and we're dropping too fast. Strip's where I'm gonna land. Only the word is crash.
Should have shot him down over the open desert, Larkin. Now the civilian casualties will be enormous.
Yeah, that's right. Instead of shooting it down over an unpopulated area, only killing about 3 innocent people, the plane crash lands on the Las Vegas Strip, causing more property damage and civilian casualties than a Category 5 hurricane. Somehow, Poe, Baby-O, and Bishop all survive the crash along with Cyrus, Diamond Dog, and Swamp Thing. Unfortunately for him, Johnny 23 is not that lucky.
Yeah, this one's dead.
We better get him out of here.
'Tis but a scratch.
While saying goodbye to Baby-O and Bishop, Poe notices Cyrus and the others trying to get away in a fire truck and heads after them on a couple of police motorcycles along with Larkin. They eventually catch up to and kill them all in what I have to say is quite an entertaining and well-made chase scene. In any case, the bad guys are dead, Poe reunites with his family, and everything wraps up nicely. Oh, except for this one little thing. It's not really a big deal or anything, it's just something that may be a bit of a problem for some people, but I don't know. It's just that there's a fucking serial killer on the loose! Yeah, apparently Garland Greene also survived the crash and is seen shooting some craps in the very last scene of the film. What, they're just going to let him go? They're not immediately starting a manhunt for one of the most vicious criminals in the history of their nation? They don't see this as a potential problem at all? Well, considering he didn't kill that one little girl, he's probably completely rehabilitated, so I guess it's fine. All things considered though, I still think this is a great fucking film. The action is top-notch, the casting and acting is pretty much perfect, and although the story does get a bit silly and stupid at times, it just doesn't matter. This is such a fun film to watch, and even the slightly more awkward or bad parts are really enjoyable, even if it is only because they make you laugh. If you haven't seen this film yet, go out and buy it now. You won't regret it. Okay, so it isn't that intellectual or anything, but hell, I'd much rather watch something stupid but enjoyable than something smart and boring. It's kinda like this show, really. It may not be all that clever, but it makes up for it with effort, entertainment, and skill. Okay, so maybe it's nothing like this show.